This song is one of my favorite songs, and when a few people saw that I was going to be having this my song today, they were questioning me because they said, how can you possibly make this into a spiritual song? Because I guess it's a song of the 60s, and it's all about, Woodstock and that kind of thing of really loving the one you were with in a whole different way that I might be describing it. But I always thought this song meant about just loving the people you're with, like how we do here, right? So I think the problem is in the people who were giving me pushback than me, because I was right there with it. I didn't think of it in any other way. That's your problem, not mine. Anyways, when I was coming up into my early adulthood and I was falling in love and having my heart broken and breaking other people's hearts and just really learning about what is love, it always came to my mind, why is it that state of love, when we fall in love, right? Doesn't that feel so good? That just all that excitement and all that, chemical stuff that's going on in our bodies, it's so yummy and luscious and wonderful. But I always wondered, why is it that it's just reserved for romance and relationships of that type? It never made sense to me until I came into spirituality. And I realized that really is the goal for us, is to live in unconditional love like that for all beings and all life, which to me works perfectly with gratitude, because gratitude to me is that feeling of love. And so as I'm moving into this holiday season, because it has begun, are you starting to get inundated already? Right? It's after Halloween, it's over. It's just over, I know. But there's all this tradition that goes behind the holidays, lots of traditions, and they're wonderful, and they just make you feel so good, right? Because it's like old home. And for me, and you all know, I grew up Jewish, and tradition is tradition. And so it's really strong in me, this whole idea of tradition. Yet, I turned away from it all because I made the decision that I didn't want to have a family and put them into any kind of tradition. I just decided to be a single person in my life and go my own way and do life in a different way than what I was told life is supposed to look like. So as the years have gone by and I've lost family members, my grandma first, and that was a tough one because she held it all together with tradition. But as she left the family, and then my dad and my mom and all the others, it just came to a point where all holiday tradition was gone for me, right? I know there's a lot of people here and online that have had that same thing happen to you, because loved ones leave our lives, and then it's now, what do we do with tradition? What's left? Because it creates an emptiness, right? It's like, this used to look like that, and now what? Now what do I do? And for me, after my mom passed away about 4 years ago, after that, I was done with holiday tradition and Thanksgiving. It was like, I do not want to go to another Thanksgiving. I am done. I just want to be with the kitties in my living room with my cozy clothes on and watching Netflix. And people reached out to me, right? People reached out to me and they said, you shouldn't be alone, Dale. And I don't ever say that to anybody. They shouldn't be alone. I guess if you think that really truly, and they're in a sensitive space. But when people said that to me, it was like, no, I know what I need this Thanksgiving. I do need to be alone, because I don't want to be reminded of what's missing, of the tradition that is no longer in my life. And then 3 years later, a wonderful group of people who I'm connected with said, we're going to have Friendsgiving, and we're all going to come together, and we're going to there'll be like a potluck, and we're going to come together at one of the people's houses and celebrate Thanksgiving. And I had to ask myself, am I ready for this new tradition? This new tradition? Could you put my slide up that goes with what I just said? This new tradition. And I said, yeah, I got to jump in, because my heart was healed enough where I could be open and receptive to a new tradition. And so we all came in, and there was just this special, loving feeling. And it was so joyful, because we meet online, and we were in person. And we all brought our dishes, the turkey and the mashed potatoes and the bread and all that great stuff. And we gathered around the table, and we just talked about gratitude, and we were just chit-chatting with each other, and it was so wonderful. And I realized at that moment that tradition really isn't about certain people needing to be at the table, or certain customs that need to be followed. It's about love and connection. To me, that's it. Love and connection. and who's in your world now. Because I know for me, and many people that I work with who have lost people very dear and near to them, that it's really hard to see what's in front of us because we're still holding on to those who aren't here anymore. And I know we all have our path with that grief. But there comes a time where we need to open our eyes and see the people who are in front of us. And that they aren't there. If they aren't there, then be that energy of attraction to bring people in your life who are connections to you. And you can start a new holiday tradition. And my next slide is this. Good old Woody Allen just kind of puts it all where it belongs. Tradition is the illusion of permanence. The illusion of permanence, right? And I for one always thought tradition was something that was very permanent, that held all families together. But when I read this quote, I said, it is just an illusion. Because rituals and these things we do, they're just things we do, right? And it's the love that's eternal. It's the connection that's eternal. So it's really not so much the tradition, but it's what we're doing when we gather together. And so when I brought up today that I was going old school with our meditation, because I did it how Dr. Joe used to do it, because it happens to be one of my favorite traditions at the center. And I thought how ironic that I'm talking about new tradition, and here I go bringing up an old tradition. But the cool thing about old traditions is we can weave them into our lives. We don't need to get rid of them all. We bring those that are really meaningful into some sort of order in our traditions that are being created by means of us. And so that's why I don't like to throw anything out, like Elizabeth, and because there are treasures. There are treasures. And my next slide, I believe it's yes. So the memories of our traditions are imprinted on our heart and create the rich tapestry of our lives. And I want to really speak to this because this tradition that I did today is really meaningful to a lot of you, I think. You like that 2-song meditation thing, dropping into silence, a little prayer, and it fills you up. And to bring that in is something that is really important to the heart. And so when we're looking at our family traditions and we're wondering what next, because the landscape is much different now. What do we do next? Well, it doesn't matter because whatever you have imprinted on your heart is coming with you. And I take this very, very seriously for myself because I have a lot imprinted on me. I have a beautiful grandma who made such delicious home cooking, never sat at the table because she was too busy making sure we were all good. And that's imprinted on my heart. And, I've got to say this. I have such wonderful people who just want my life to be as good as possible and for me to have all this good stuff. And around Hanukkah time and Passover time, they always say, you should go this place for holiday celebration because it will fill you up. And, I know they mean well, but nothing can replace my grandma, just like nothing can replace your holidays. And I have to say, I know if I went to those places, I'd be comparing my grandma's latkes, her potato latkes with theirs, and I'd be going, oh, God, where did they learn how to cook potato latkes? Where? You need onion in it, for God's sakes. You can't have latkes without onion, right? Or anything of Jewish cuisine without onion is just shonda, right? Anyways, but I think it's important for us to honor that because there's a lot of trying to replace that we do, right? I got to replace that because it's not there anymore. And really, we can't replace what's already happened, right? We can't replace it. It was good for us, though. Whatever that memory of tradition was, it served its purpose. And now we get to create something new for ourselves because we are creative beings. And that universe of ours demands it, that we continue being creative because tradition sometimes does fix us. And it keeps us stuck in what we've always done. This is the way you're supposed to do it. And we aren't in alignment with universal principle if that's what we're doing. Because you guys, we are all evolving together. We are changing. Are you the same person you were last year? How about yesterday? Nope, me neither. So we've got to honor that. We've got to live in alignment with this universal energy that it is all about expansion, evolution, and change, which my next slide will tell you, as the Buddha says, change is never painful. Only resistance to change is painful. Ooh, oh, it's the resistance, not the change. That's the problem. We're always blaming the appearance, right? And it's really something different. It's never what it appears to be. So it's not the change, it's our resistance to it and our discomfort. And I'm here to tell you I'm very uncomfortable with change. If I had it my way, I probably wouldn't want any change to happen in my life because I like comfort. I don't like pain. But I do like expansion, so I know I have to allow the change to come in. But what I know about change and us is that we're wired to be able to change when we stop resisting it, when we hold lightly to whatever that change is doing in us and through us, and to always remember, we live in an unlimited universe of possibility. So if we are standing in a place where change is unfolding, I'm going for the biggest, grandest, most wonderful possibility as my outcome rather than something that is undesirable. Because we have all this power inside of us. I gotta tell you, we are all empowered to influence our lives. We are not victims. We are not powerless. We just need, though, to be present to what is unfolding and to not let it take us down, and to know at every moment you have the ability to shift whatever is coming up by dancing with it, by not resisting it, by not being afraid of it. Tango with it. See what it has to say to you, because there's something that's meant to be that's coming up. We live in a world of cause and effect, and if you're in effect, something made it happen. Let's figure that out. Let's figure out what is talking to us so that we can hear whatever that message is and move through our life and bring forth our greater reality. And my next slide is this. So the body of the universe cannot help changing. This is by Ernest Holmes. This is what constitutes the eternal activity of spirit within itself. So we are all spirit through and through. There is nothing outside of that. Everything is spirit. Everything is this energy, this dynamic, expansive energy. Some call it the quantum field. Some call it the mind of God. Some call it infinite intelligence. It all means the same thing, that we are this energy that is very intelligent. I don't care what you think about your husband. It is very intelligent. And we are all it. You all are it. We are all it. And when we recognize that, and you liked that out there, huh? Should I come down there and have a counseling session with you and your husband? Just kidding. Afterwards. Anyways, the nature of who we are is to change. We are here to change. The good news is that you impact that change. So it's knowing that we are the body of the universe. We are this amazing, amazing, thriving, shifting, changing, growing energy. And that is the eternal activity of who we are. So it is always happening. Hate to tell you this, we are always changing. But our job in our consciousness is how are we managing that change? What are we doing? How are we looking at it? Are we resisting it? Right? That's really what it's all about. And, I will speak for myself that I used to be very resistant to change, and I was just grounded into things needing to be a certain way. I thought that my life had to be all about work 9 to 5 and then go to sleep. That was what I thought was life. And then something started changing inside of myself, and I fought it. I said, that cannot be. This is who I am. This is what needs to be. This is how we do reality. Yet there was this thing inside of me that wanted so badly for me to enjoy my life, and that meant not working 9 to 5. And so I had to stop resisting it. I had to say, okay, I let go, let the universe bring me to what is this reality, this change, this expansion that is very different than what I know. And so I allowed it, and everything worked, and I don't have to work 9 to 5 anymore, and I create my own schedule, and I absolutely am in love with my life because I'm present to it, and I'm seeing what's in front of me, and I'm using it to my highest good. And it's using me for my highest good too, because it is all one interactive system of reality, and we're all participating in it. So it's time to go into that and make that your tradition. And my next slide is this. When we live in fear, we shut off the flow of our creativity, and we cannot comprehend the unlimited possibilities that are always present but not visible, yet unseen. We also forget who we are and that our energy influences what is unfolding in the world. So, we had an election this week, right? So I'm in ministerial class. I'm not taking it. I'm kind of a TA to Dr. James, and I just love watching these beautiful, brilliant minds evolving and expanding and being really nervous every class like I was, right, Dr. William, Reverend William? But no, besides that. But he was talking about the election, and they had to do a talk. Like, they had to say, what would be your talk with the election? And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't even going to talk about that in my talk. And so I thought I better integrate it in. So we all have had a tradition the last, 5 or so years, a tradition of reacting to elections, right? Because there's fear. There's fear. And I'm right there with you. I've been very reactive for all elections the past 5 years or so. And I realized that, yes, there is stuff in this world that makes us scared. There's decisions that are made that we do not agree with. I get that. I'm right there with you. However, what I know in my heart after really deep diving on this stuff is it's not about the election. This is not about the election. This is not about circumstances. It's about ourselves. Because when we're allowing anything at all in the outer world to bring us to a place of paralysis and fear, we are not remembering who we are, that we are this unlimited energy, that we are connected with each other, that there is no such thing as us and them. It's all us. And when we remember that, the fear falls away. But these elections have a way with us. And it doesn't matter which side you're on. That's really not the point. The point is what's going on inside of you. What is being brought to the surface that's freaking you out? That's for us to look at and to remember who we are. And what I love about this class I just finished teaching, it's the Secret of Success. And this wonderful book by Joe Dispenza, he talks all about creative energy and this unified field, which is just another name for the mind of God or infinite intelligence or whatever you want to call that energy that we all are. And he says that when we're in fear, we are not creative. We are not creative. We're closing that off. And when we're not creative, we're not seeing what's possible. We're only looking at what our mind is telling us is going to happen because I'm absolutely certain that's it, right? We talk ourselves into thinking this is the way it is. And then we get that support from the media or whatever we're reading or our friends. And it's so important for us to break that tradition, and start a new tradition of knowing who you are and remembering that it's not about what's outside of here, it's about you remembering who you are. Because then it doesn't matter what's happening in an election, it doesn't matter what's happening in your world, it doesn't matter at all, because when you know who you are, nothing sets you back. Because you know that even though there's something that's been created, something that's happened, you have the power to uncreate it by remembering that this thing isn't the only possibility and that you influence your life. And I know it's difficult because we people, we really like to know what's going on here and be able to see it, touch it, feel it, sense it. And there's this whole other reality, the unseen field of possibilities. We cannot see it, but you know what? Your heart can. I know our hearts know really, really well what that unseen reality is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be dreamers. We wouldn't invent things. If this heart didn't have a voice in our life and tap us on the shoulder and say, oh my, there is so much more you can do here. There is this creative impulse that just wants to come through you and create a greater reality. So with this election, however you feel about it, this isn't the end story because we are an evolving story of humanity and your consciousness matters. May I have my next slide, please? So there's this really great concept called spiritual maturity. You guys want to get mature spiritually? All right. So it's the art of holding two things at once. And I wanted to teach you this concept. It's one of my favorite concepts, and I just became familiar with it, probably just within the last 3 years. And what I love about it, it teaches me to stop thinking in black and white terms, to think there's only this and that, but to start seeing there's everything going on, and that I can hold love for this person but disagree with them. Or I can look at my past traditions and be sad, but see oh my gosh, there's more for me to, new traditions for me to create with others, to be able to hold both sides. Because I think sometimes we get told or we get something in our heads that tells us, no, it's got to be this way or that way, and that's it. And I say, no, it's everything. Because that, like that quilt I showed, we are a patchwork, a tapestry of so many different life experiences. And when we see that and hold them all together in our hearts and see the value of all that stuff, the experiences, their traditions, and see how all of that molded us into these precious divine beings that we all are. When we can recognize that, we never have to live in fear. We never have to have an election freak us out anymore, because we stand in a place where everything is connected and our energy and our consciousness works together with everybody else to rise up and create a better world. And my next slide is this. We are one because we are one. We are one. It isn't this or that. When we start to recognize that we are one and we're creating this reality together, when we can see somebody who we are triggered by, when we can see somebody who upsets us or we so disagree with, and stop going there and say, there is a human being who has a certain outlook on life. And I am not going to put hate on them or get mad. I'm going to go to love and say, you know what? I have compassion for you. I want to have a conversation with you. Because if we understood each other, I think the walls would come tumbling down. Because we're keeping ourselves in these structures of belief and opinion about each other that's keeping us separated. And if we stop doing that and start softening our hearts and maybe understanding why somebody has a different viewpoint, then we're in love only, right? We're in love only. And so it is our work to do, to be spiritually mature, to look at ourselves and how we're reacting, to find that sweet spot in our heart and give people a chance and start to see a greater possibility. Regardless of what the world looks like, we have to stop putting ourselves on that and think it needs to look a certain way, because there is divine right action and order always taking place. And that, as Reverend Williams said, that divine right action and order knows so much more than we do, because it's got a greater perspective. And it is all about harmony and love and joy. Those qualities of life are so much bigger and more powerful than hate, than divisiveness, than resentment. Love wins. Love wins over all of those things. So we can raise ourselves up and remember that as we walk together in our world, which is very interesting right now, and it's always changing, but if we can elevate our consciousness a bit and become spiritually mature and know that we are influencing our reality, even if we don't think we are, but to know that we are making a difference by coming from love, life is going to start to look a whole lot better. And I have such faith and such knowing in my heart that as we do that, we're going to see it in the world, because everything starts as energy first, and then it comes into form. And that's the form I am knowing for us as a world, as a country, and just as a universe. And my last slide is this: a new tradition. So I think the world is just begging for us to evolve and create new traditions for ourselves. And as much as I love just doing what's been handed down, I think we're being called to create new traditions. The time has come, and we are up to it, because we're creative beings, and we've outgrown so much tradition, whether it's a thought that's a tradition, a ritual that's a tradition. We've outgrown it, everybody, and it's time for us to step up and be creative and let that flow of imagination and new ideas come forth, because we are creating the new traditions for our world, for your families, for your friends, everybody. And for this center, I will add that, because we're part of the new tradition, because you're seeing that live, how we are creating new traditions here. So I just want to thank you for being here today, for just taking some time to examine your own traditions that might need a little tweaking. And if you're in need of new tradition, then vibrate it and let the universe bring the details into your heart. Thank you for listening. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.